Looks like we're live. I need to make sure
There's
we're
that.
live on YouTube. There's no problems. I don't trust it yet. I don't trust this because there's always something wrong.
I know.
An hour in, we're like,
It started.
all right.
At least on Twitch.
Yeah.
Not yet on YouTube.
Here it is. We're live now.
On YouTube.
It says video unavailable for some reason.
Oh, dude, we're live.
Yeah, well, we're live on Twitch, but YouTube for some
We're
reason.
live on YouTube.
Oh, we
I
are.
see it. Yes.
You're watching it?
Yeah.
Great. Yep, I see it now. All right, well, I mean, I guess we
Hey
can...
everyone, welcome to Art Quest. This is our second episode. And tonight, me and Colton are gonna critique some of the submissions that we have received on our Discord channel. How you doing, Colton? Say hi.
Hey, I am just about to post on the Discord that we're live. Great. Wait. There we go. So I guess if you want to start, I'll pull up Twitch and stuff. We have Yellow in here. What's his name again? Ron. Hey, looks like Travis.
Hey, is everyone having a nice Sunday? How was your week? Shout it out on the chat. Talk amongst yourself. Give us some questions, feedbacks. That'll be very appreciated. And remember, English is not my first language. I'm only imitating Colton, so. How are we gonna do this, Colton? Are we gonna? Which one of us should go first?
Either one of us. I mean, I'm still making a couple notes.
Okay, so
maybe you can.
I guess I'll start.
One. Yeah.
Ron's
doing his Art Center finals.
I've chosen a few earlier submissions on the Discord channel so far. So let me share my screen and let's start.
Great.
Okay, I don't know this person's real name. Maybe I forgot to look at it on the introductions.
This is the guy who's doing his Art Center finals. Hey, Ron, this is your work.
Oh, his name's Ron?
Yeah, I think so.
He's a channel name's Yellow, so
Yeah.
I guess I'll call him just Yellow. So let me look at my bullet points. So, okay. I really like the narrative. It's a very hopeful and very lively drawing. You can see that this character is looking to this big structure at the sunset, and it's juxtaposed against the sun really nicely. It makes a really hopeful signal for the audience. And I like that the characters on top of the city makes it look larger than life, and the characters looking towards the bright future. That's how I see it. Color tones are nice and warm, with a touch of magentas as the shadows. Yes, so at least for the narrative and the idea and composition, it's working for me. I have a couple of advices I'd like to point out about the fundamentals. So what I see right now is that if you follow these buildings, all these horizon lines are going like everywhere. See, like this building has a slightly different one, this one has a slightly different one, and it doesn't meet the horizon line over there. And if I look at buildings on the right side, you can see that it's up and down, up and down. It's really crazy. So I think my advice would be to, if plotting these is really difficult for you, my advice would be just use simple free 3D programs just to put a couple of boxes, a couple of objects to see how it would generally look, and the 3D software will do the whole horizon line, how should I say this, measurement units for you. So I tried to put this in 3D and try to figure out where is the horizon line and whatnot. And you can totally see that. I also tried to follow the buildings on the right. So I don't know if you were trying to draw like a straight street, but if I really just follow what you drew here, it looks like the street gets wider as it gets closer. And also with the cylinder shape that this character is standing on, it's really tilted. I don't know if it's deliberate or you had some difficulty understanding the perspective. I don't know, but that's how I see it. So let's carry on. Yeah, you can see where I'm going with this. If you look at the floor grid, I definitely try to follow your general perspective with this. And yeah, in 3D, it can be just this, you can just have a couple of these boxes in correct heights. You can just see it. So and you definitely need to watch out for the top view, because if the top view doesn't make sense, then it'll be very hard to draw over it. So because I followed what you drew, to me it doesn't look like a straight street. So it's fine. There's nothing wrong. As long as you make it look correct, it's fine. Sometimes we do run into streets like this in certain cities, or when we're traveling in foreign countries or villages that doesn't have very strict architectural planning. So so another thing I want to mention is that if you use, let's say, like texture brush too much or soft brush too much, people do run into this problem of all these edges bleeding into each other. I know I'm using like a somewhat low quality image, I'm sorry, but in case people don't know that, if you have like elements separate from each other, let's say, let me grab a brush. Say, sorry, my brush setting is not correct. Okay, there we go. So you have like this character separate, and this character is definitely separate from the cylinder, for example, right? And the cylinder is definitely separate from this building, and this building is definitely separate from this. And of course, I understand that there's depth and all that. So my best advice would be, each object should be separated with really clear, hard edges. That way, no matter how the image is expanded or shrunk down, you can see which one is separate from which, because the edges are so hard that it basically tells the viewer that it's separate from one another. But I understand if you apply like camera depth or blur, I know it will change. But if you're looking at like a really big clear scene like this, I think that would be important to point out. Of course, I understand if there's a sunlight covering the silhouette, yes, this will definitely happen, but it can still be applied where it's applicable. And so on this right side, I try to use edge sharpen tool. I don't know if you can see it, but it gets like clearly separate like this. I'm not recommending people to use sharpen edge tool. You can only use it where it's necessary, but yeah, but the idea is that to make elements separate, you have to use really sharp edges and not use blurry type brushes to point that out. Yeah, just use the lasso tool and make it really clear. For example, what I'm trying to elaborate is this, right? Like, I'm sure you've seen a lot of this, and pros can use this really well. But if you're just starting out, I think it's best to just use, like I said, use lesser. So if you look at the middle image right here, you can see I used the soft brush tool to separate these two colors, and you can definitely see that it kind of bleeds into one another. This is what I'm trying to say here. So on the last one, I just simply made it like this, right? So the idea is that whatever you have, let's say this is a building, right? And let's say, let's say this is the sky and the background, right? You have really orange sky. See, this will make things separate from each other really clear. That's what I'm trying to say. So, yeah, keep doing it. It's fine. Try using really simple box 3D objects as to plan out the perspective first. And I'm not telling you to like, oh, you need to detail every little 3D faces, balconies, people there, and all that. I'm just saying that you should just plot it like that. Then it'll be way easier for you to do this. And you don't need to worry about whether your perspective is wrong or not. You can just simply focus on, now your brain can just simply let go of the thought of keeping the perspective right, but you can just keep working on important stuff like, let's say, texture or the color theory or whatever that is, right? So that's why we have all these tools at hand, and you need to use it as much as you can, because especially if it's free. So yeah, that would be my advice for yellow. Colton?
Great. Yeah. I can get started on my first one also. Yeah, I think a lot of good advice in there. I mean, I know we just took Eric's VisCommon Art Center this term, and a lot of that stuff he learned during the term. I mean, Eric doesn't teach any like scene creation and stuff. It's mostly just like individual props. So I think this is a good explanation on how to put like things in perspective.
Colton, change camera
Together. Yeah, sure. I think that's there's a lot of good info on that you just gave on putting things in perspective, like multiple objects in one scene and how you relate it to the horizon line and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, thanks for that. I can go to mine right now. I can share my screen. I hope I share the right. Is this the right one? No, that is not the right one. Hold on. Share screen. My screen's like switch. So let me try this one. Yes, this is the correct one. So I can show you the work that I'm going to be going over this stream in case anybody's in here and wondering. I'm going to be going over this one. I'm going to briefly talk about this one too. I'll go over this one. I'll go over this one, and this one, which were two pieces from a portfolio that was posted. I will go over this too and talk about this guy's portfolio also. So starting with this one, which is by Bradley. I believe it's by Bradley. I can check really quick. I want to make sure that scroll up real quick. Brad Johnston. So with this piece, I see a couple of different things. I like the idea. I'm glad that you're using a foreground, middle ground, and background. That's important. That's really good for showing things. It's kind of like a basic I mean, maybe not so basic, but kind of a standard way that people show something. Like the foreground is like scale, the midground is the subject matter, and then the background is, you know, like more could be more context of what's around it. So the first thing that I'll go over is I think that the values in this piece can use a little bit of work. So what I'll do is I'll separate out some of this sky really quick from some of this. I will take, and I'll take this value right here, and I'll probably just simplify a lot of this stuff back here. Working off of the silhouettes and stuff, I'm just simplifying a lot of these things in the background. And then another point I'd like to make is the perspective on this piece is a little bit off. You have your horizon line, which I'm gonna guess is somewhere around here probably, and then this building is actually there's some scale issues with this building, so I might go in, and also a little bit of the lighting and rendering parts on this building I would probably I'd probably work on a little bit too. So you want to make sure that if your light is in fact coming from the left, you want to make sure that this is rendered like a cylinder, which to an extent you did, but I would also focus on just really making sure that your form is reading well. And then more on the design part of things, I'll go ahead and flip this really quick. More on the design part of things, I think that down here we might need some more context as to where this area is. What's going on, and like who, like does someone live here? Because right now it looks pretty barren and empty. I'd say probably, you know, go ahead and add some storytelling or indicating elements of maybe who lives here. Some maybe pathways and different stuff down here, and I'm just doing this really quick. Maybe some pathways of how this works, if this is like a farm, or if this is a place that people like live in outside of the city. You want to kind of come up with exactly the story, because right now it's these two little like small huts and then this big kind of place that I'm not sure exactly what it is or what function it's serving. So I probably, you know, give a little bit of story. Maybe this is a farm and you have little animals down here. Let's see. You know, little animals, and who knows if there's like a shepherd or something down here, if this guy's raising sheep or cows or something like that. Another thing that I actually wanted to bring up that I took some notes on, that I've noticed in a number of your pieces that I think could really help a lot, is the way that your forms of like your spatial awareness in a scene like this is working. So you want your hills to really reflect what's happening to the geometry of the land. Like how are these planes like rolling? Like how are these, like how is this land basically moving in 3D? And what are you doing to give your viewer an idea of how that's all working? Like you really need to make sure that your forms are reading according to those rules that you have decided on. Like this mountain is sort of, you know, rolling over like this, and if your light is coming from the left, then you're going to have this sort of form of the land that's working like this. And then you can start to sort of carve out like maybe a pathway that goes up the hill, something like, maybe a little bit lighter so it'll read, maybe something like a road, And you can start thinking about all these kinds of things like building. Like if this was a game like Skyrim or The Witcher or something, the character is going to essentially maybe want to go from this farm area all the way up to the city. And you'll notice in a game like The Witcher or Skyrim, I'm going to basically use those as an example because those are two medieval games, but you're constantly looking at stuff. A lot of the stuff in video games is very squished because in real life you could literally be running for hours and not go by a single building. But in a game, a lot of these things are squished, so you're constantly finding new and interesting things. And it would be nice to see a lot of these buildings and stuff like that. Just pack in as much stuff as you possibly can without making your image feel too crowded. But a lot of these, like, you could put like a building here. I'll make that on a new layer actually. You can put like a building here, you know, maybe a little guard post for people who are coming up to the city. Maybe you'll have a area like the city gate, right? You can have your castle, and then you can really start to go in and actually design out some of this and think about how a bunch of this stuff works. Like, how tall are the walls in this city? Like this building, maybe this is like a cemetery or a graveyard because you have this little cross on there. And you can, like, this could actually almost be a shot of your character in game on a hill looking out into what you might be able to explore. So if this is a cemetery, then, you know, you can have that. Maybe there's a, I don't know, a peak. Sorry, a helicopter just went over my house. You can design out these little elements and look at some reference of castles and how that works. And really start to figure that kind of stuff out. How that all works. Maybe there's like maybe if this is a farm, you could even have some like fields right here. And your lines will actually, of like your rows of food or wheat or whatever, can actually describe the form of how your land is going. And maybe maybe the road like goes around this or even cuts right through it. Like, who knows? That's kind of your design, and, you know, roads that split up and come back together and all that kind of stuff. And then for your focal point, which is, I can actually switch over to this one really quick. I think your focal point in this one is a little bit unclear because you're not sure what to look at. Is it this or is it this? Because this is way bigger and more interesting than this is. But they're both kind of holding the same visual weight. And then there's this rock formation right here that also has some very interesting texture and design on it. And you're not really sure which of the three to look at. So I would probably say as a first thing, I'd probably just go ahead and take these and move them together like more. I might even take this, make it a lot bigger. Do something like this. So now you can kind of, and maybe even if some of the tops of the buildings are cut off, it leaves it up to your imagination. And then maybe say even, and keep in mind what I was saying about how your forms are reading, or how your hills and stuff. But I would probably go ahead and do this. I'd probably simplify a lot of this stuff in here, just because if it gets too busy, you can have an entire mountain in the background, and you can have like implied detail, but you can simplify like a lot of it to the point where there's not even a lot of actual detail. It just leaves a lot up to the viewer's imagination. Like, I can actually show you an example from a piece I just finished for a class at Brainstorm, which is this one. And there's a lot of kind of, like, you can tell that there's an entire that there's an entire mountain back in this area, but the value range is so small that it doesn't actually feel like dense details. Like the value range of this kind of foreground area is so high compared to the value range of something like all this back here that this reads and catches your attention, like all this area, and this doesn't as much, but it still holds up when you go and look over at it. So with something like this mountain in the background, you can really start to imply a lot of details that you don't actually need to show all of it. And you can even have like a big cloud that comes over and covers a lot of it, and you can be like, oh, there's a mountain back there, and I bet it looks really cool. Yeah. Burin, are you watching the chat?
Yeah.
All right. Let me know if we got like questions and stuff. So I would probably move that stuff together. I'd maybe create a like a road or a connection between this and that. Maybe some stuff like that. A road, maybe that comes down from this. I'm guessing these are like guard towers or lookouts or something, which is pretty cool. A lot of places have stuff like that. If you want to have a like water come through here, that might be kind of cool. Like that. Maybe some nice implied stream or something. And then you start to get this layering effect. Like if I want to put if you want that like interesting rock, you don't have to have it so what would be the word? Prominent. You can kind of have it implied in a lot of ways. Like keep your contrast low. Like if I want to keep that cool texture that you have on the rock, maybe make it into some sort of like roadside thing. And I'm kind of butchering your design of your rock here, that you probably found something really cool and wanted to put in your image, but I'm just doing this for example. So a lot of this kind of stuff in here, you can really more imply that there's a lot in there.
We got a question, Colton.
Yeah.
Ursula says, is there a set rules for very standard environment like this? You were talking about foreground, midground, background, and about focal point, etc. So is there a set rules one can think about when making a piece like this?
Yes and no. I would say that a lot of people use this foreground, midground, background strategy. Like, I think a lot of Fang's early videos talk about this, and that's a very good resource. Like his first number of episodes, in fact, like all of his maybe first 30 episodes. It's been years since I've watched them, but he talks a lot about stuff like leading lines, which like leading lines, like all going into the composition, like all pointing towards your important like place, your eye kind of traveling along these edges around your image. He talks a lot about all that kind of stuff. I would definitely recommend FZD Design Cinema episodes, every episode, but I think a lot of the early ones he really talks about this kind of stuff heavily, and I think that's a good rule. One thing that I've really been learning myself lately is just how much you can actually simplify and still show a lot. I think it's very important to simplify heavy amounts of detail with just not as much. Like, see, you can show so much in this scene if you plan it right. You know, you can maybe even have like a bridge here. Let's see. You know, you can have a bridge. You can have all kinds of stuff in this, all in this one scene. There's a horrible bridge design. This is the stupidest thing I've ever seen. But you can have all this kind of cool detail and stuff, and your eyes are just kind of bouncing back and forth between all of it. With how it was before, your eyes are not really bouncing back and forth. You're trying to figure out what you're actually supposed to look at. You're like, so are these like ruins? It doesn't look populated. It looks like nobody's been there in a long time. Or you can be like, or am I supposed to look at this? And you're like, well, there's this, and then there's this right here, so maybe that's what I'm supposed to look at. And you kind of get confused, but by kind of pinching these things and putting them together, it can really help a lot. Like, now you're kind of, this is kind of all treated as one thing in a way. And then there's like a whole trail that you can follow and go back and forth. And I think even putting this horse dude and maybe maybe cutting him out and putting him somewhere that's not so on the edge of the page, kind of falling off, pointing at nothing, because right now he's kind of pointing at nothing, right? Like, his direction is like that. Like, where's he going? Like, I would definitely take him or her and put them somewhere not that big, obviously, but somewhere maybe more prominent, like where you can silhouette if they need to be put in. If like you absolutely must put this person in, like maybe take this real quick and do something like, yeah.
Can I add a few things about doing an environment like this? Let's say.
For sure.
Sometimes it's if it's always about how much time you have. So, let's say if you have a lot of time to invest in this, it's better to geek out on every element. At least spend like few hours on each element. Let's say, look at that. You know, instead of like those two towers on that rock right next to a river.
Yeah.
It would be best to find like at least 3 different type of similar tower in Europe, and then they can be Spanish castle, French castle, English castle. You can put them all three of them together, and you can say like, okay, at least the bottom floors are this high. All 3 of them have these things in similar, but these 3 castles have towers have 3 things in different like this, right? So you can definitely follow the ones that are common amongst those 3, and then you can break the ones that are not common amongst them. And if you do that, then let's say, I don't know, art directors will definitely see that, oh, he did his homework. Or, you know, you can definitely show off that, you know what you're doing, right? So research is definitely helpful. Also, same with the bridge. You can definitely look for a bridge that is almost the same height you want and kind of the same width of the river. So you can, again, find a couple of different bridges like that and find what's common amongst them. Keep that. Anything that's different, you can break it. I don't know. That's how I see it sometimes. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's really good advice. I mean, I think a lot of people in Brad's situation are like, they're not working, so they have basically as much time to work on these pieces as they can. I think a lot of the time they'll hit a stopping point when they basically reach the extent of their skill level, which I think is a fantastic thing that you're contacting us on here and asking you to paint over your stuff, because this is definitely one way to level up your skill, like, is by getting critiques and stuff like that. And that's part of the reason I wanted to start this community with you in the first place, was to do that. So, I mean, great job. But like, what I'm doing right now is I'm essentially filling in some potential detail that maybe some of the like some of the things that you might be able to put in there, windows and you should definitely use some good solid reference for all this stuff, like European castles, all that sort of thing. And just sketching in a bunch of that, you can see that I took this guy on the horse and I, separated this person out. And then what I would probably start doing is maybe grouping some of these values, some of these next. I might group some of these values in here, like different grasses and stuff, just to sort of get that little bit of graphic, like figure out exactly what the graphic read of this is going to be. Like, where's your light source coming from? It's coming from the it's definitely coming from the left, so you can get some of that, like if this is like grass or whatever. And you can start to figure out, sculpt in, figure out exactly. You'll want to know how your forms are obviously reading. Like if this castle is on a hill, you want to make sure that you know how all these forms are working together, right? And then based on this form information, like all of this, like if this is straight up and down, then this would definitely put a cast shadow over. See what I'm saying about all these like forms? And then obviously you got your mountain back here. All this stuff. And based on all this information, you can really start to you can really start to figure out like where, like, are there some trees in this place? How do they grow in patches, or are there some of them by the road? These lines are trees, by the way. Like, where are your trees at? Are there some trees poking up behind this kind of wall right here? Like, you definitely have some trees right here. Like, what's your scale of the trees? How big are they? Are there any up here? Anyways, all that kind of thing. So, and the same with this one, it's so important to be able to see exactly how your forms are working. And I would honestly say the way to do this is just by practicing a lot and learning perspective, getting your VisCom, your draw through, like Scott Robertson's How to Draw book, that sort of stuff really under control. And then like with your, here, let me merge some of these together. Right? Like it feels a bit more like, oh, this is a castle on a hill and these are like the guard towers now. Like just by modifying a little bit of stuff like that. And in all these houses like here that you've added in, you can still have those. You can definitely still have those. Like, just add them like to these areas. Like right here, you can really start to describe the architecture style that you have and you want going on. So anyways, that's basically what I have to say about Bradley's work. And I think that's it for mine right now. Do you have another one lined up for us, or?
Oh yeah.
Thank you for always submitting your work, Bradley. It is a joy to look at it because you got some really cool ideas going on. Oh, and one more thing. If there's this really cool type of rock formation right here, I do like what you did have going on in your original one, which was you had multiple, and you can definitely still keep that in. Like maybe, have another one up here. Maybe like I think if you look at some of Skyrim's old concept art, and this is awesome. I'm gonna see if I can find it really quick. Skyrim Design Works. There's a bunch of old traditional sketches from Skyrim that they're all. I'm gonna see if I can find some of it. Some of their old traditional sketches. they had a lot of this kind of Nordic ruins with like different hieroglyphs going on, and they're really cool to look at. I can't find it on here right now, unfortunately. Skyrim Design Works. It was like a big zip file that I found online with a whole bunch of traditionally scanned in images from. Yeah, here's some images from it. Like, all these are like traditionally made. They're so cool, but they had a bunch of their like early concept art and stuff just made from pencil sketches. Man, I can't. No, this isn't. This is part of it. But these are the characters. They're not the This isn't it. That's not it either. This is some of it. Oh well, if I find it, I'll send it to you. But they have a lot of these kind of Nordic ruins. Oops. What did I just do? Okay. Hold on. I just accidentally brought down my... Here it is. So, yeah, I have a PDF of it on my computer. I'll send it to you or something. But anyways, add more. Maybe if you want it to be more like embedded in the terrain or something, go ahead and add some more. So, anyways,
Yeah, like last thing on this. Yeah, once you like Colton said, once you decide and really establish how the surfaces of each ground is it like, bumpy, curvy, whatever. Yeah. Make sure all those houses and rocks, everything is actually really sitting in there.
Oh, absolutely. Like,
because people tend to ignore it. They think, oh, and then it's really easy to forget that each fundamental is built on foundation 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 steps.
Yeah, like this kind of thing. Like, this building takes up actual, and I like how you did it here. It's a very good example of doing it right. This building sits in this hill. A lot of people will kind of draw, a plane like this and just stick a building in there, like that, and it'll just sit flatly on it. And you really need to think about your transition into the environment, because that's another very important point that Buren brought up. Is a lot of the time when you're doing concept art as like a professional. I'm bringing up the Twitch to see if there's any questions. A lot of the times they message you back and they're like, Can you show us how this building sits in the ground, because our modelers need information on how to actually place this. And if they could ask you to do a call out, and you'll need to go in and just be like, oh, well there's these rocks right here, and it's a transitioning shape like that, so it's like stuck in there or whatever, Or another option is you could say like, oh, well there's this really tall grass right there that it sits in, and it's stuck in the grass. Like, those are things that the 3D team needs to know so they can build it, or else their job's going to be a nightmare.
Most of the times, concept artists are actually thinking for other people. That's what we must always remember.
Yeah, that's our job.
It's not entertainment. It's not we're doing it for fun. I mean, we're having fun from our job, but at the end of the day, it's always about the next guy, whether it be the producer, director, or the 3D guys.
Yeah, exactly.
Prop guys, yeah.
This is the kind of thing I'm talking about. Like, this is solving a problem for the guy who has to build it now. They're like, oh, okay, so wait, are you saying it's rocky up until this point, and then the rocks end and it turns into this really tall, dry grass? Yeah, okay, perfect. I can model that. Can you find an image online of what that tall grass would look like? You go on and you find tall grass on Google, and you just basically put that image and say, this is the tall grass that's next to it.
A lot of the times, it's amazing how sometimes the 3D guys will not think your mistake as a mistake, and they'll just do it.
They'll build it, and it'll look horrible, and you'll have to redo it.
Yeah, and then you walk over there, and
Oops.
you don't know if you want to tell them, hey, I made a mistake or not, because it's somehow...
It's embarrassing.
It's somehow done by them. It's like, oh, God.
Yeah, like, you'll be surprised at how... what will surprise you is how unartistic some people you work with are, and how very artistic and fun others are to work with, and you have to be able to work with both. Because some people literally just want to do their jobs model. They want to model what they see a concept artist make, and that's it. And others will be like, yeah, like, this is awesome, let's... Like, all like they like take your design and make it their own, and it's really awesome to see. So, you know, a lot of stuff like that. Very important. Yeah, it's a good point, Burin. Yeah, I think here's the I'll go ahead and merge this really quick. This is the before, and this is the after.
Okay, so
I'll switch to your screen.
Yeah, sure.
All right.
So this is a piece done by username called Minorath, and I got a couple of things to say about this. We can see that this really menacing bird flying towards us with the talons out, and you can see this one has like really ominous orange warm lighting from the top, and the eyes glowing really scary green, almost like the Terminator, and the other eye is blinded and stuff. So I can see that he tried to make the bird really scary by giving it like these really sharp edges, like really sharp angles that it'll, in your brain, it'll make you feel like if you touch it, it will prick your finger, see? So I think that's what he was aiming for. And yeah, what I mentioned is really related to shape language. When we see knives or needles or, you know, those sharp objects, we know that it will either, you know, pierce us or prick us or damage our skin somehow, right? So that's great. So that really adds to the whole scariness of this image. But a couple of things I want to mention is that the feather distribution and well, you'll see what I'm trying to say. So here, if you study real bird feathers, I know it's a fantasy. It might be. Also, one of the things that confused me was that I don't know if it was an owl or a raven. But because I don't know which one is which, I'll just talk about both of them. So I guess it'll be helpful. So if you look at the study the bird wings, you can see that on the top part. Okay, let's look at the bar now. If you look at this dark purple, this is where the bone is at, right? This is where all the joints are at. So that's why the feathers around this area is like really small to not obstruct any motion. And as it goes outwards, it gets longer, 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 longer. See? Because there is no any joints down there. And that's why it looks like this. And if you look at the raven wing, you can definitely see it's repeating itself. See? 1, 2, 3, 4. That's how I divide it, right? That's why you need to make studies like this. This is not mine. I actually grabbed it from Google, but I couldn't find a full version. But you get the idea. You need to take the reference images. Again, just like I said about the tower, you need to put 1 or 2, at least from different birds, but closer in size, right? You can put them together side by side and just point out that, okay, this gets like this as it goes this way, this gets like this as it goes this way. That way you will completely understand what the bird does with its wings and how it's folded if you go crazy about it. And if you know all these functions, no matter how you draw them, you will still try to show the function which will in turn help with the result, right? And that's why, like, let's say if you're collecting references, if you're really crazy, you go zoom in on the head, on the back, downwards, when it's open, when it's folded. You can even find a dead bird to see how much it will look, where it damages most. If you want to draw like dead birds, if you want to draw really scary stuff. But yeah, you need to really geek out on the researching, and you just need to make a little quick line drawings like these to point out what you understood from this, you know? So I couldn't find a good image on Google that a raven flying towards us, but you can see like this artist used a pencil, I think, and he definitely studied it. Even though it's not perfectly accurate, at least he kept the wing sizes, see? Let me grab a red brush real quick. So he knows that there are joints here. And he knows this gets a little longer. And also notice that feathers also get wider as it goes out, see? This is really wide, this is like this, and these are like really tiny, 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 right? And most birds have this extra on the, I think it's their thumb, if you speak in human terms. I think these might be the thumb wings. I don't know much about bird skeleton, but yeah. So, okay, you could say, well, Buren, I was trying to draw with this really spiky feathers, you know. Now it's gonna become this realistic stuff. That's not what I was really aiming for. Like, what are you doing, you know? I understand, but let's grab a case that's closer to yours. Okay, look at this. I got it from Shutterstock, sorry, and you can see that this artist tried to try the same really scary, sharp knife-like feathers. You see, and but he still kept the most common trait of the bird. See, I know he didn't keep it gets wider out, but you can definitely see that it gets wider to this. And also another thing I wanted to mention was that if you look at the bird tail, here you see like a really big lump on this side and a really small lump on that side. And that's not good if you want to keep it that way. Also, notice this. Do you see this really clean curve going along this way? Going along this way, see? Because right here you have this big feather out like that. It won't be there. Just won't be there. I don't know if there's really a special case of a bird that has it. I don't know. I didn't study every bird on the planet, but just remembering a couple of falcons, eagles, and all that, you won't have these feathers, right? And I know things can be fantasy, but you must always stick to what common audience remember and know, right? That way you will not confuse them, and that's very important. And I just put another picture that's showing its backside, so you can see that there's feather go like that, and you can see all these tiny feathers that's on the joint. And here's I would call it the I don't know what's the professional name for this feather, but it looks like a thumb for me. So in my mind, I'll just remember it as the thumb feather. So I guess everyone has their own way of memorizing things, especially if your mother language is not English. So yeah, and I try to overpaint this down here. What happened was that if you go back up, one of the thing I wanted to point out was that definitely the feather on the top part, and also I have some problem with the how much you used your canvas space and symmetry and the feather distribution and others, right? So down here, I definitely tried. Well, I did not paint on this half to point out what was wrong. So you can see that. Let me grab a blue pen. Excuse me. So okay, so I did try to keep the whole consistency with the feather size. See? But I also kept your design. You know, I actually used this smudge tool. I worked on it really quick, but you get the idea. And I know that when we see certain animals or human figures, whatever, humans always look for a face, because face of an animal can show whether they're angry or playful. It's really important. So that's why we're always looking for a face. Whenever we look at someone, we look at their face first, no matter how far they are. So based on that, I thought, I don't know, just I was playing with it, so just giving it like this really crazy glow of an eye would add to the scariness, I guess. And also, if you look at this red frame I have here, I'm just trying to point out the theory of layout. So if you have an object sitting exactly in the center of the image, if you have the power to control your canvas size. Look, this edge, and this edge, all the way to the paper must be equal, okay? The furthest 4 points must be equal to the canvas edges. So that way, it will sit perfectly in the middle of the paper like this. And this picture has a lot of potential because it can easily turn into really cool sticker, tattoo, poster for a rock band. You know, it can go anywhere, and it has a lot of potential. So that's all I have to say. So just keep doing your research. And I'm not talking about style. Style is something else. Just no matter what style you do, just try to keep it to common audience knowledge and what we see in the nature. I think that would be always the best way to go. All right, thank you. So Colton, you can take over now.
All right. Oh, it's so hot in my room right now. I'm sweating like crazy. It's like running down my face. I don't know why it does this either. It's like way cooler outside. Probably because I have a PC and 8,000 monitors going and a Cintiq Pro that's like a 8,000 degrees.
Switch camera, Colton.
Yeah. Share screen. Which one was it? Was it screen 3? I hope it was. Yes. Alright, I'll critique this one really fast. She's actually not here right now. She's at the store, so she'll have to watch this later. This is my girlfriend's work. Alright. So actually I'll critique this one later. I'll go to this one first. So this is let's see, Maya's work. I think that's how you pronounce it. And there's a couple. I was checking out your portfolio, and it's actually pretty nice. I like a lot of stuff in there, a lot of creativity. Uber Blackthorn. I don't know who this is. Yeah, I love this piece. The colors are great. The blues, all that kind of stuff. And I think this piece has a lot of potential because it's really cool. Like there's these buildings that are by this cliff. I'm actually going to do this real quick. I'm going to take this and I'm going to crop this image down so it's just this much, because I'm just going to critique the image itself. Let's go ahead and change this. So, one thing that I was going to comment on is the focal point. I'm not sure exactly what our attention is supposed to be directed towards. I see these really cool houses in the top left. I see this cool archway, and I see this little boat right here. I'm assuming it would be this whole area with the flag and the boat and all that. But then I see these houses and stuff up here, and I'm not sure exactly. Let's see. I think what I would probably do is take this. I feel like it might be a little bit awkward here, so what I may do is take this and just take this out a little bit, just so you can see a little bit of the water, so it's not like cut off on the bottom. I may extend this a little bit. Oops. Let's go ahead and stretch this. Sorry, this is the part where I have to be quiet because I'm really thinking. When I'm working on details, I can talk and all that kind of stuff. Might move a couple of these down here.
I'm gonna go for a Discord to see if you have any questions. No, as you paint quietly, I'll look to the Discord if any of our audience have a question.
All right, I'm just gonna I'll be ready to talk in like 2 seconds. I think I'm gonna, let's see, I'll take this. I'm really just experimenting right now. I'm trying to figure out a direction.
I really like the man on the boat.
Yeah, I like that idea.
Got no questions so far on YouTube. We have not any, and somebody's telling you about asking you about the rule of thirds. If how's that gonna come into this piece, for example? Like,
rule of thirds. If I'm gonna be totally honest, rule of thirds, I don't quite use it as much as I use graphic. Rule of thirds is a good kind of starting point, I guess I would say. But rule of thirds is also something that you can get really attached to easily. And sorry, I didn't actually think about what I was going to do with this piece beforehand, so I have to kind of come up with a bunch of that stuff now on the fly. So rule of thirds, like I'm more concerned whether the piece works graphically rather than like something sits right on the thirds point. Oops. I can share a book that's really good on that sort of stuff that probably a lot of people in here know about and probably a lot of people in here don't. And it's a book called Framed Ink, and I have the book.
Framed Ink is great.
I don't know if it's in my room or if it's in my brother's room, but I have it around here somewhere. But
yeah, everyone can Google it.
It talks about graphic composition. It talks about simplifying things into very basic elements, like something like right here. These are some shots from the book. Like, you break it down into like its basic elements, like this, and then that becomes this right here. It's like it's basically thinking in abstraction, and you start. If you told me actually make the boat even smaller for better version, just because now that's really small. I'll answer your question in 1 second after I talk about this. So this book is really good because it's all in black and white. I think it's in 3 values or 4 values total, and it just talks a lot about. The entire book is on composition, graphic composition, and just wonderfully explains leading lines and lighting and all this these very important essential principles of composition by this amazing comic book artist he's so good. Like, just look at this piece. It's so cool. Like, all these pieces, and he has these really wide canvases to really accentuate his decision. This isn't from Framed Ink, but it is really awesome. Whoa.
I think he made recently 2 books on perspective as a
Yeah.
follow-up to Framed Ink.
Framed Perspective and Framed Perspective 2. I think my brother actually has both of them. They're really good. In fact, I think it explains perspective any more comprehend. One of the things about Scott Robertson's How to Draw book on Draw Through is that it's very difficult to digest, especially for someone who's just learning perspective. It's almost like a perspective book for people who are already masters of perspective. It's like that kind of thing. It feels like it, because like even like I've been through Viscom twice, all the way through. Once in FZD and once in Art Center, and a number of other like perspective stuff that I've learned. And even reading the book to this day is just like, wow, this is deep. Like, this is heavy duty stuff. And I think Scott kind of made that book for that purpose. But framed perspective is also pretty good. I haven't had the chance to really go through it very much, but so yeah, Framed Ink. This is the book cover. Absolutely worth a buy if you want something awesome on perspective, or not perspective. This is the perspective book, by the way. If you want something awesome on composition. So, anyways, I think she had a comment. It's funny because a few people told me to actually make the boat even smaller for better proportions, just because now the houses seem really small. But I must admit I wasn't really paying attention to the composition in this piece. Whether you make the boat smaller or bigger, I think it has more to do with what you want to. Thank you, Ursula. I think it has more to do with what you want to show rather than whether you should make the boat smaller or bigger, like itself. So, for example, you could make the boat like this, and this guy could be, boating towards this right here. Like, maybe he could be going towards a dock, right? Like, maybe there's a house right here. I might even just take a new layer real quick and just a little bit of lighten this just a little bit. Like, maybe there's a little bit of over the water. Maybe that might give us an excuse also to be able to let me really sculpt the shape in here. Oops, I don't know what I did. My computer always makes noises, right? Like this could give us an excuse to sort of make a couple foreground maybe rocks, and then I might go in and do a bit of figuring out right here, like figure out exactly how this will work right here, right? If there's a little hut right here, whatever, how this is connected, you can really start to go in. And I think line work is something that's really great to do something like this. And I can actually show an example right now. So if you're worried about your design, a lot of the time what I'll do is I'll make a new layer, fill it with white on the very top, set that transparency to like 50%, make another new layer, and start drawing in black, and just be like, okay, like how does this work? Like, are these stilts in the water? Like, maybe some of them are connected, like, and then you can start to come up with new ideas because you're not really afraid anymore, because you don't have to commit to anything. Like, you can start going in and being like, okay, well, maybe there's this house, this kind of hut, like this.
Making a white layer like this will really help you tune out the noise that you see while you're painting stuff, because humans get distracted so easily by noise, and you may think that you're not looking at the noise and textures of the drawing. You actually are. It's just you are deciding not to notice it, but that will also take some of the brain power that you could have used it just on focusing on design. So using this Colton's method will really help you hone in and focus your brain energy into just this, which would definitely make you remember other stuff that you might not think about if your eyes are looking at noise.
Yeah, I love it how you said Colton's method. It's certainly not my method, but...
Dude, it's patented, man.
Oh,
It's
yeah.
patented.
No, I just got it patented yesterday, actually.
Yeah.
I stole the idea and then patented it. Nah, I'm kidding. So, yeah, anyways, you can start to really think about that, and you can start to think about how, like, all these gestures, like, you can come up with, like, a gestural thing, and maybe you even want to, widen this so it's actually... So this corner of this roof is actually sticking in there. Maybe, maybe not. Who knows? You'll have to figure that out exactly. But a lot of this stuff you can really figure out in that sort of way. I'm really trying to find excuses to put some depth in this scene because, like, kind of like how this one is. It's a bit flat because it's such a straight on side. It's almost like a perfect side view. So figuring out exactly how to just and it could be as simple as, like, there's a rock wall right here, right, and this is actually in perspective, so it's like, so it like curves like that, and then maybe, there's a building right here like that. That's out of perspective, by the way, but for quick example, like maybe there's a, water and like these rocks may be a foreground element. I actually did a bunch of this stuff in this one. You'll actually be able to see that this layer right here and this layer, I actually went over and sketched a bunch of these rocks out. Like I had like this gestural... Where is that? Where did I put that? Oh, I had this gestural line right here. And I had this, like, these kind of gestures. I wanted to know exactly what the gesture of kind of this ship was doing. And I wanted to know how that tied into, like, this whole thing right here. And that, and then I wanted to make sure I broke the silhouette up of all that kind of stuff. So... And I had, like, all this stuff. I made sure that these rocks were in perspective, at least to an extent, before I started painting them. And then I went in and really sort of, with just the lasso tool, I sort of designed in a lot of these rocks and stuff. Like, a lot of these. Like, I draw this ship, like, the same way that I do practically, like, a line work. Which is, I'll just go in and do some stuff like this. Like that. Like, I'll actually use my line work brush in order to draw it. So if I drew more stuff, like if I wanted a log, like, or like a support, like right here, I'd probably do something like that. So don't be afraid to go in with, like, your line work brush and really, whatever you use to do line work, and really just draw some stuff. Like, how does this, like, is there a layering of buildings? I like how these are built on the side of the cliff. Maybe you could decide that there are some, like, rock outcroppings or something like this, and then maybe the building's like half resting on that and half, like, supported by, like, posts or something. And this, I just did this roof style just out of random. Like, I could copy yours closer or less. The style doesn't really matter for that kind of stuff. Like, but once you decide on it, you have to commit. But it doesn't matter which one you choose. It just matters that you choose. Look up some interesting cultural reference, maybe. You can think of how they get up and down. Is it like ladders and stuff and all that? And then this guy, if he's coming over, and he has his little thing, like, what's this blue light on his staff? Maybe he's going to this village, and you can actually go in and be like, you know what, like, and I'm sure I could actually read on your portfolio on ArtStation if it was if this was in the story or not, but just for the sake of time right now, you can go in and you can be like, well maybe there's like these veins of this blue material in this, like the rock walls or whatever. Like maybe you can see it kind of in here. And then you can kind of connect, oh, this guy has a blue staff or a blue lantern. Maybe they use this for lighting, right? Maybe these are actually lit by like blue light. Like everybody just sees blue all the time. And maybe they're like really sensitive to like red or something. I don't know. But, right, like, so coming up with some stories and all that, and whatever your story is in your portfolio, you can really emphasize that, like, you know, and then maybe you can have some like even like blue reflections in the water, you know, get those nice reflections in there, and then maybe some, well, there. But anyways, let's see. So yeah, I guess I'm kind of figuring out some of the compositional. You want to make sure that that these pieces, like right here, this chunk, you know, these chunks of like value breakups are all like talking to each other, like they feel good. In a book like Framed Ink will definitely help you with that sort of thing. Let me look at what else I got. This was another piece by hers that I was going to go over. I was just going to say something quick about it. Do you have one ready, Burin, or should I?
Yeah,
okay.
I do.
Okay, I'll switch to you, and then I'll actually go over this piece too, because I have something really good to say about this one.
All right, go ahead, man.
Switch to you or do my thing?
You can think while I do this one.
All right, so I'll do that.
Yeah, make your bullet points and such. So, okay, this was done by Maymax, and from the first glance, I can see it's an amphibian, it's a predator, and it has this really aggressive colors, and it has really sharp teeth, and it's great. I like it a lot. I just want to mention that it can just be pushed further. So it's just my personal taste at this point. So I'll just share it with you guys. So what is the main trait of predator? It's really fast, right? It needs to be fast to chase down its prey. So you need to have a really aerodynamic, especially on the spine and the face. So I think this artist tried to capture that with this red fin on its head. It kind of does. So, but it's just the general flow of the body form that's not really aerodynamic right now. I can guess that it can be really quick if it's underwater, but right now it's like there's like this lot of weight. Like, see, this is not too aerodynamic in my view. So let me demonstrate here. So sharks, lizards, any creature that goes underwater and runs fast, kind of has this missile type silhouette, right? Because it's all about aerodynamics and stuff. Okay, so anyways, moving on. Here, I tried pushing the head fin more, just to make it backwards more, so it kind of adds to the whole aggressiveness. And I changed the neck curve to make it more similar to real life creatures. But you must understand that if a creature this big will definitely require a lot of protein, a lot of food. So it needs to have a big mouth to compensate for that. Think about crocodile, right? Think about frogs. You know, sometimes they have like huge mouths, right? Toads, for example. Most water creatures have really big mouth in ratio to their body, like fish, for example, right? So it'll be nice to just mirror that a little bit. And I wanted to add it gills, but I decided to put it under its ribs, like shark. But gills are usually on the neck, but this time I tried putting it on the ribs. Also with the forgive me if I didn't understand, but all these red bubbly things look like I don't know, like these bubbly. I don't know what they are. I thought maybe you were trying to maybe do it like this. I think, but because the silhouette is so round, I didn't understand. So I decided to kind of discard that as I went along. I hope you forgive me if I didn't understand the concept that well. But the idea of a concept art is that it needs to be understood on the first glance without needing explanation. That's the whole point. And if I see it the way I see it without explanation, then that's what you're showing, right? Let's say 1,000 people will see it. You cannot explain it to 1,000 people, every single one of them. So that's why it needs to be really clear in the first glance, right? So that's why some of the real out there designs don't really stick with people, because, hey, I don't know. Yeah, like, isn't it supposed to be like that? Like, there is a universal set understanding of the world we see around us, right? We can definitely see silhouettes, facial expressions, color tones, right? For example, if you see something healthy, it has like bright, warmish color, but if it's something sick or rotten, it will go pale or green, right? Something like that, you know, just you need to build your design on those things, right? So here, just like I said, it needs to have a big mouth to compensate for the food it can eat, and it needs to be a predator. So I changed the silhouette into this really aggressive long form. And to make it more scary, I kind of took the idea from the Minarath I just critiqued early, and I kind of put that on its fin, right? Now it looks kind of scary. And also, if you go back on the top, it kind of looks like it can come out on the ground and it can walk. Because it doesn't have a claw, I see that it probably might walk on these knees or the wrist. I don't know how to say it. So that's why you see a lot of pressure coming down, because you can see that this part of the body will have the most body mass on top of the head and until the hips, because from hips, the tail will be compensated on its back tails, right? So seeing that this chest muscle and these joints need to be really big, right? Also to carry the whole weight of the body underwater as well. So that's why I decided to give it like a really sturdy body part. And also try to fix the curve now. It kind of goes like this now, see? And I thought about, hey, what if I give the top red part on its jaw? That would look scary, you know? So now, for example, right, like I said, like we always process things subconsciously. So if you look at this monster jaw, it has like a huge jaw muscle, right? Like you would immediately understand that, hey, if I get bitten by this, my bones will snap, right? Yeah, these are the character traits you need to study from the most common predator types, right? And down there, I said, you know what? Let's just push it even further, right? Let's change this into something that only stays underwater, but really scary. So I gave it like this. Now it looks like a sports car for me. So it's this. Even the bottom curve is like this. See, now it really reminds us that it can move really quick underwater. And I gave it like an even bigger neck. So now it reminds us like sharks or alligators that does exist, and it can just swallow any prey with one big chunk, right? And with the white stripes, I thought about like, hey, it kind of reminded me of a tiger, and I thought, well, tigers have black stripes, and what if I just reverse that and try it as a white stripe on this? I'm sorry if it's reminding you of a zebra, but zebra is very specific. It's black and white stripes. So I guess my explanation is helping you. And then again, since I mentioned you should go back and study real life examples, look at these, right? I mean, I know there's plenty of fish in the sea, right? As a pun intended. So you can definitely look at the species you're looking for and what kind of a predator you're looking for, and you can steal its, like the fin. It's really bony, and all the scale. But I understand it's a huge creature, so it'll be like a whale. Like whales don't have a scale, right? Because it doesn't need. I don't know why. I guess I need to go back and read biology book. But yeah, like these red fins reminded me of these aggressive guys. These are really aggressive fish. They kind of kill each other when they are together in the tank, so they need to be separated somehow. And look at all these cool spots on the fin, right? Like you can definitely take these, right? And look at these tiger stripe-like patterns. It's so cool. So yeah, like if I pick this, yeah, I can add extra, and it can definitely bleed into the, because right now you can see this red and gray is like it's making really sudden shift. So in order to ease it, you can just lead these red dots into the body. You can carry the red dots everywhere, but don't do it uniformly. It'll just become a noise. So apply it where it's necessary. So yeah, that's all I have to say for this creature. Again, just keep borrowing from real world design. And I understand, I'm not telling you to exactly copy. I'm not telling you to change this monster into like just a regular old fish or lizard. But like I said, see, like you can definitely borrow from this diagram, right? Oh, does it serve my purpose? Does it look scary enough? Does it look quick enough? Does it look strong enough? How am I going to make it look strong enough? Okay, if it's this big animal, how big the mouth should be? It's a predator, so it needs to break lots of limbs, unlike omnivores, right? Omnivores need to bite tiny grass, so that's why they have small mouth and narrow neck, You need to kind of just keep reading about this, and it will... I know there's infinite amount of stuff to learn, so you just need to stick on what you need to do for this purpose, and do that, and then apply it to your design just a little bit. Think about gravity, think about food resources, think about what it's going to do, and it'll come out better. But yeah, this is cool. I really liked it. This is a really good example to explain all these things. So keep it going, and you can make... If you're really crazy, you can make the babies, you can make the female of the species, and you can design the prey of this. It can go everywhere. Does it live in a freshwater, or does it live in the marina trench? We don't know. Does the red part glow when it's scared, or try to fend off the predator? You can do all this stuff, but definitely keep it underwater based. But what I'm trying to say. I think I said enough about this. So. Thank you. Colton, you can take over now. I said what I had to say.
Yeah, I really like what you did with this piece. It's a really nice piece to begin with, and I definitely saw a lot of potential in it. I'm certainly no creature designer. I'm afraid to take on stuff like this to paint over, but you did a really good job of that. I'm digging it. I'm digging it. Especially that patterning on the last one. That's cool. Alright, I guess I can share my screen and go over the next one of Maya's, which is this one. I just circled a couple things. So, it's like what I was talking about earlier with this one. This stuff right here. This is a lot. I think this piece would benefit a lot from thinking about this kind of thing. First off, I really do like this. I really do like this piece. It's interesting. It has a cool idea behind it. I like this building on this tree. It's kind of like simple, yet some like techie stuff about it. That's pretty fun. So like what I was saying with this one, how I'm talking about integrating this kind of stuff. Like you want to know how things connect to the ground, how things attach. So I would probably go in and do a little bit of work on. You have some really nice lighting going on in here, by the way, and some really nice these blues in the background, and like that sunlight hitting that is really nice in my opinion. And a good integration of your textures and stuff like that. So I would say just going in, figuring out how some of these, things connect to like the tree, like what are we gonna, this is actually one of the times that I would probably go in and go ahead and do my technique, the Colton technique,
trademarked,
as Boren likes to say it, and go in and be like, okay, so how does this connect to the tree? Is it, is it strapped to it? Is it bolted down? And a lot of it depends on the culture. Like if humans settled in giant trees, for example, they wouldn't really care. They just like destroy the tree. They bolt themselves to it, kill the tree in the process, and just build a building on it, right? But other cultures wouldn't necessarily do that. For example, a culture that really respects nature and all that would probably be more likely to maybe tie themselves to the trees or put like a bracket around it or something. And if
can I add points?
Yeah.
On the, so let's say like before you put your house, you need to definitely design the terrain.
Yeah.
And it's not just the tree itself, right? What about the weather? Is it windy? Is it always sunny, or does it rain a lot? And if you make these things clear, it will be even way easier to understand for the audience. Let's say, look, sometimes the desert have these trees too, right? Let's say you have a giant desert tree that's all dry. And let's say if you build a house on it, what about sandstorm? What about the sunlight? You need to decide on your nature, and then the nature will basically decide what the aesthetic and the material and the height and the strength of the bolt and the straps for you, at least half of it.
No, I'm just making a couple more notes.
I just said what I had to say. So.
Okay. Yeah, I would say. I mean, I noticed some straps on here too. Yeah, and like Boren said, the weather. Like, does this place have doors? If this place doesn't have doors, then the weather must be pretty nice. Or it's a shack. Like, it depends who lives here. Like for example, like the Wookiee houses in the trees on Star Wars. Like there's some really, really cool designs in these. Let's see. I'll actually drag this over for you. Looking at this, like look at that. Like this is one non-destructive way to build on the tree. Here's another. That's really cool. Like this kind of stuff. Like you can do this. And you can see how their doors are kind of constructed. Like, see, these don't have doors. However, there's a really big overhang, so stuff doesn't get into the. So one thing you could do is maybe you wouldn't do a door, but you could have a really big overhang, right? Plants coming down like that. Right? Something like that. That's one way you could show this. And you could have a kind of a cool excuse to show this nice angle of the roof and all that. Right? This beam right here a support? Figure out that. Like these, maybe integrate them a little bit more. Maybe there's like a little thing around here that's holds these in. Like I'm not sure exactly what these are for. I'm not saying obviously you have to get rid of them, but maybe have more sort of a story behind why these kind of bubbles are in there. Like, are these skylights? Are they actually windows to see out? In which case, maybe you'd even change the door shape to like circle. If their windows are circle, then maybe their doors would be circle too. Like, you can start thinking about that kind of stuff. Because right now I think the circles might be clashing, but... Okay, so they're windows. So I would definitely think about integrating... Because right now they're kind of... It's kind of like a... kind of like that. I'd probably think about maybe making the door... Maybe making the rest of the architectural language fit more that circle, because I do like that idea and I don't mind it at all, but maybe some of the other stuff also could be a circle, like, you know, porch, this wood. I see you already have your railing like that, right? Like maybe, not sure exactly, like you'd probably come up with some circular shape language, and then however this is connected to here. Maybe you could even have like, this is like cut out or something of the boards.
You can have like a fire escape type thing on the balcony where they could just rappel down. Or...
Yeah, why don't they just do?
Yeah, like they could pull up supply from the lower branches.
Yeah,
or something like that.
Yeah, I mean, maybe, yeah, definitely. You could certainly have, like, it depends where the rest of their community is, right? Like, you could have a thing where there's like a where there's a little basket that would go behind the tree. Yeah, pulley system, right? Like a little basket maybe that comes up, like, and then you could totally design that out and think about the supporting structures and what they make the rope out of, all that kind of stuff. Or if the whole village is in the trees, you could do something like another pulley system, like that. Like, I see you have this ramp, this kind of bridge right here. That's really cool. What I don't understand is why there's a railing right here, but there's no railing on the bridge. That's like super, would be scary
dangerous
to walk across. Put some maybe put some more, even something like, maybe make it a little bit stronger so it's not like a rope bridge. I really do like this idea. I like the idea of this blue kind of essence. I always love stuff like that. It's so cool. So maybe you can have like a railing like this, have some, design out some sort of cool railing system. What else? Yeah, stuff like that. Definitely think about how your objects connect to one another, because that's something that's very important for someone who needs to build it. But overall, I think this image works pretty well. It's a cool shot. It's not bad compositionally. I think your painting is pretty great on it. I really like this shape language going on back here on the trees, and how you've kind of integrated this and your lighting and all that. And I think it's this piece certainly has a lot of potential for being brought even further. I like your dappled lighting and your little plants. I think maybe some of these actually, I like the idea that you have them there, but I think some of these plants might be a little they might feel a little out of scale. Unless this is like a fairy kingdom where they're very small. Is this is this normal size or is this very small? I think it's small, right? It seems like a
Feels
fairy.
that way.
Yeah, it feels like they're little fairies or something.
Yeah, so I mean, if you didn't like make it really clear, then things like this will happen. Like me and Colton would read it like, "Hey, because the ratio of
Okay, it was supposed to be rather normal size, she says.
okay then, but
Okay,
just a
that's
yeah.
fine. I would just make sure that some of your scale. The only reason I thought it might have been fairy was because this tree is so big that it almost, and it's basically just a scaled up normal tree. You might want to add some more scale information, like maybe even like some like little mushrooms or something, that something that's definitely human scale, that people can identify, like, oh, okay, maybe not even mushrooms. Mushrooms are pretty you can change the scale quite a bit. But what would be a good example, Burin? Something that's human scale, that's undoubtedly human scale.
Chair or
Well, there can be like fairy chairs. I'm thinking.
sorry.
Like, I don't like maybe you can have the like bark texture, for example.
Yeah, get it like a real life big tree of that size and just slap it
Yeah,
there.
like make sure that the like if there is a person in here, like don't just scale, like if you scale up a tree. I was going yeah, it can feel small because of texture size. That's right. Tree is really big. Yeah, the tree's definitely really big. That would definitely be one of the challenges, is to figure out how to make a really 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 big tree and make it feel like a big tree rather than very small people. So
Ursula says the tree would have smaller texture and plank texture would be a little more dense. Yes.
yeah, well, the tree may not necessarily have smaller texture, because I mean the bark of the tree could also be giant, but the details themselves would probably be a bit. Let me see. I'm trying to find that tree from from the movie Avatar, because I think they did that pretty well. I'll drag this over here. Like, this is a pretty cool tree right here. Like this, for example. Avatar. What the? Minecraft. Avatar tree giant. Yeah, stuff like this. Like, you got oh man, Avatar was such a cool movie when it came out. Like, the story was okay, but the visuals so cool. Yeah, anyways, like, see, like, these little things on the sides of the trees that show scale, and a lot of these other trees around it actually show scale more than anything. Yeah, sequoia trees are giant too. The trees, smaller textures. Well, it's a mushroom forest. Mushroom forest for this one at the start, to be honest. Yeah, like, just things that are definitely human scale, like even grass. Grass is pretty like that's pretty good that you did this, but maybe even like more like grass scale here.
Fruits. I don't know.
Yeah, fruit
watermelon
too. That could,
or bananas. Something that stays consistent in every species.
For some reason your grass or your details right here actually look really small. I would probably go a little bit more literal with maybe the grass right here, because right now they almost look like hairs on like the legs of a bug, which doesn't help the scale very much. So I might go in here and like really like make some like patches of grass or something, as just an option. One of many things that could be done. Anyways, just things that can help the scale, because and maybe a person in here. Definitely how these buildings are constructed would also help. Buildings are constructed in a certain way with planks and nails and boards and all that. Look at some reference of maybe a culture that builds these kind of things, like maybe something in like Hawaii or something. You can Yeah, I would say just scale. Like, I think a lot of the textures you used were actually scaled, were actually very small textures, and there's something about the human brain that can just, that knows when it's looking at like macro photography. I think the plants on the roof are now that I'm looking at it, I think maybe some of your plants on your roof, you can definitely go in and be like, okay, like what culture is this, is, or what location does this take place in, right? And you can go in and really be like, and really figure some of that stuff out. Also like vines and stuff like that, be like, you know, you can do like vines and all that. Just make sure that your scales, the textures that you're using are human scale textures and references, and it can help eliminate some of that stuff. Because movies and projects have those kind of warped scales all the time, like the spider in Lord of the Rings, for example. It's like you can't just scale something up and expect it to look giant, because look at like the movie like Honey, I Shrunk the Kids, for example. Like, if you scale up a spider, the people look teeny tiny. The spider doesn't look giant unless you have the spider next to like a building, which shows scale. And then like Buran's saying, find something that stays universal and put that there as a scale. Like, you know, if you put a 10-foot tall spider next to a house or a building, it looks like a giant spider. But if you put a person next to a spider and the spider's as big as a person, you might accidentally make the person look as small as a spider. Which I think is what's kind of happening here. There. So, yeah, stuff like that. You saying something, Buran?
Like, for example, right? Like, you see the plank that goes out to the left side of the page. Like, how do you say, like the bridge, ish? The bridge, right? The swinging bridge, I think.
Yeah, that.
Without the railing, it's just that you need to remember about your person's foot size.
Yeah.
That's why, like, these planks are so big that you can just put your leg between them and fall down. That's why it makes a reverse psychology where people thinking like, oh, these planks are so big, so I guess the house is small. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
If you go to any jungle, I guess you can look at, like, it's usually a single person bridge, and usually the plank has consistent chop size. See. So if you, Colton, could you try making the planks really small? Like,
yeah, no, that was definitely one thing that I was thinking about too. I can just take this.
Because whatever you design, you need to think like, okay, the person's foot will stand on this, and will there be a room for the person to fall through it, or whatnot? You know, that way, exactly like that, dude.
Yeah. Like something like that. See, like it automatically starts to change the scale, because if you have planks that are like this, you know.
See, now it's slightly better. Now the house looks slightly bigger now.
Like, imagine if you had a bunch of planks that were like this. It would look really small. These would look like little wood chips instead of like 2x4s or 4x6s or whatever, you know. Like this kind of stuff. You know, if you have like a big old giant crack in the wood, just this scale indications make it feel like it's, you know, really tiny. Stuff like that. Like if you had a bunch of these as your bridge, it would feel really small. And like all these wood textures and stuff, and like these gaps in the wood and stuff, like these boards must be super wide. Like I think you want to maybe double, even triple some of them. like this. Because floors usually aren't built with big giant boards like that. They're built with littler boards. And the same with like maybe even the walls, or not the walls as much as the floor, I guess, but stuff like that. That can help your sorry, I was reading the chat really quick. Stuff like this. And then your supporting structures and all that. I'm just gonna really quickly sketch in maybe like, you know, I'll try to something like this. You know, you need to make sure that because little teeny tiny structures actually don't need that many supports. Like look at a birdhouse, for example. It doesn't have a whole bunch of like, you know, like supporting structures going around it like this. Because it's so small and it doesn't need that because it's strong. Like the smaller, the stronger in that way.
And it's lightweight as well.
Yeah, exactly. But if you have like, you know, if you have this kind of stuff and it's all like tied together, like a bamboo hut or something, it's going to feel, the scale's going to feel more real size too. Like something like this maybe. See? Like it's already starting to feel more human scale, because you're starting to put more of those human scale elements and textures in there. You got like your tree going off back in here, stuff like that. I can just merge a bunch of these actually. Let's go ahead and merge. There. So stuff kind of like that. You want your planks to make sense in that sort of way. All that, whatever. Like, you know. Then little tiny details, like anything from like, you know, little lanterns. Like I think it would be cool to have another lantern, maybe right here, and maybe right here.
Flame size stays universal. You know, if you draw like a really tiny candle, then that will basically immediately dictate the size of your house.
Yeah, exactly. Look at this. Like if I made a candle like that, then it would be like, you know, or if I looked up a candle on Google really quick and just went.
If you go really big flame, then that will just make the house small. See?
Yeah.
Like candles are universal. The smaller the flame is, the bigger the house is gonna be.
I'll set this to screen. Make this small. And if I put this on like top or something, it's like, okay, this house is tiny. It all of a sudden looks super tiny just because like that, you know. But if I do like, well, that's still kind of tiny, but
that's a tiny house.
Yeah, like like a torch, for example, it could help a bit.
There you go.
You know.
Yeah,
same
like
with these. And another thing, really quick, these stairs I feel like might be leading to nothing. I don't think there would be enough room. I think a person would have to this room up inside the roof, unless this itself is a room, which then you'd probably have to figure out a way to connect this staircase to that. So I did that with my mouse. Just make sure that your staircases and stuff actually lead to a room. And then, but I mean, this piece works pretty good. There's just a couple scale issues like that, depending on what you're going for. But the design of it, the feeling, all that kind of stuff, I love it. It's really cool. Let's just real quickly maybe put some more of these just for... Yeah, anyways, that's about it for this one. I think I only have like one more to go through, which is this. And this one will be kind of fast because I've been doing nothing but character skins and material indication for months for work, and I could have a couple things with this that I could that I think would help a lot. Are you ready, Buren? Do you have another one, or?
I have one, yeah.
Yeah, I will. I'll I'll click on you then. There's your pretty face. You're up, dude.
Oh,
Did you say you had another one?
yeah,
Okay,
another
yeah.
one, real quick. So this one is from NicoFlow. He tried to make a painting with this awesome Evangelion robot versus Pacific Rim. Gypsy
Jaeger.
Danger, right? Jaeger, beautiful. It's really epic. I like how he tried to make this body poses really aggressive and dangerous. They're definitely facing each other, and he has this giant knife in front of us, and we can see that these little tiny helicopter lamps is giving us the scale. See, so this knife is like, I don't know, like 20 meter long. I don't know what's the scale of Evangelion. So forgive me, Evangelion fans, if I say something wrong about it. I'm just saying as I see it. So my first advice would be, if you're gonna do something this epic, and I see it's really epic, you need to go for something wider like this. So this is slightly wider than the cinematic shot, but you can definitely see how big is the city, right? Which also means how much stuff is going to be destroyed, right? We all know how these movies go, right? So yeah, that's my advice. I just have a couple of problems with the fundamentals, and I'll just show you how you can definitely fix it. It's almost the same as the first critique I made today, but I'll just repeat it for you if you haven't heard that. So this one. So you need to, if I use a 3D, and if I follow the building perspective and the horizon line implied, look at the houses. See, look at the skyscrapers. They, because I can clearly see you didn't plot the 3D because, really quick here. Sorry, let me grab my magical red brush real quick. Like, okay, so, oh, damn it. So embarrassing. Here, okay, so, see, like, it's going everywhere, right? It's going this way, it's going that way, it's going this way, see? Again, of course, the building can be built deliberately like this, I understand, but that's not how I see it. But anyways, you can definitely use 3D to plot it like that. Here's another one. See, building like this, and sorry, I'm having it's late. Okay, here's only one advice I want to tell the guys who wants to draw these big grand images. Most of the mistakes the guys make is that when they draw scenes like this, when they crop their legs and hands off, they think, oh, I don't need to draw it, so I don't need to think about it. And that is very wrong. I highly suggest that you actually build this as a sketch, see? You can crop it in later, but look at what I did. You can definitely see where the other leg is standing, how long it is, how close he is. And judging from what I'm seeing, yeah, I can see the Jaeger standing next to the building, but if you look at the Eva, he's so close to the building, and if his hip is protruding out, his leg will be in the building, see? And since it's a city, again, like Colt mentioned, everything needs to sit in a 3D space. Nothing must be poking into each other, right? So that's why you have to plot it like that in order to make things not ghost into each other. So later, once you draw all this stuff, you can just later zoom in and crop. Because you plotted all the arms and legs sitting correctly in this world, it'll not be wrong after you finish this painting, see? So yeah, that's my only advice. And with this stuff, you have plenty of images of cities, plenty of images of Evangelion models, plenty of images and concept art from Jaeger. You can't go wrong with this because all of the research you need to do is already there. You don't need to design anything, and that's the cool thing about fan art, you know. you can just make already made ready designs, and you can only focus on the action and the idea you're trying to sell. So yeah, that's all I have to say. Just use 3D, really plot it, especially with man-made stuff like that. You have to make clear where they are, whatever the angle, or whatever the depth is. So that's all. That's all I have to say. So, Colton, you can take over.
Awesome. I just got one more thing to say about that too. Also, the building, the stuff on the buildings, like where the buildings are placed. I would say look at how a city's laid out, right? Like a city is laid out on a grid, and make sure that your buildings fall into so there's enough room for roads in between. Like right now, I think all the buildings are generally like the same exact height as the Jaeger and the. I don't know what that. I was never into Evangelion. Whatever that.
You can call it Mecha.
The mecha, yeah. The knife mecha. Purple green knife mecha. All the buildings are basically right around their head height, and I think it might be interesting to see a little bit of variety. Maybe show some damaged buildings, show some distance, show like I see a little bit of a mountain peeking out behind the mech, but it's actually kind of creating a tangent with the arc of the head. You see that, Burin, on the left? Yeah, I would. You can definitely put mountains and stuff in the background, but since this camera is so incredibly fisheye, those mountains are going to be teeny tiny because all that information has to be squeezed into a tiny little spot. And Fang actually has an FZD video on this. I don't remember what one it's called, but he goes over cameras and he talks about how people make these really fisheye shots, then have a giant mountain in the background. And in order for that mountain to be so big, it's got to be like 10 miles high. Otherwise, it's just going to be a little tiny thin line, which is how it shows up in real photography too.
If you pop out your monsters in the sky like this, they will look really menacing, and people can really get a good look at it, right? And then, of course, once that's done, you can play with your highlights, the sunlight, all the shiny stuff, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's there's many ways to do this. Definitely study Japanese kaiju movies.
Oh yeah.
Not Pacific Rim, but I'm just go back to the classics.
Dude, watch all the Pacific Rims and just nerd out. I mean, if you want to make Jaeger, Jaeger Evangelion fan art, go on like a Pacific Rim binge and get the T-shirts, get the hats, like. All
the concept art book.
Yeah. Nah, but for real,
movie makers, right?
I think your paint over's basically doing exactly what I'm explaining. Is if they're bigger than the buildings, then they're very intimidating. You can have like a couple towers pointing up. Yeah, man, it's definitely like, and you can exactly. You can have like helicopters and stuff. Jets maybe flying by in the background, whatever. I think a helicopter is pretty good, and then like maybe one of them is like about to grab the helicopter and like smash it into the other one's head, whatever.
It's like those TD5 helicopters.
Yeah, exactly. So
and then you can have people going like, hey,
take me.
Hey,
it looks like an ant, like a spider or something.
Yeah.
Go Jaeger, yay! And then they fall off. Okay, or maybe one guy's like jumping off the building. Maybe that's a little graphic.
Because he knows that he can't handle the pressure of surviving destruction. Yeah, there's a lot of potential. You just use free 3D software to put a couple of boxes, scale it right, draw the legs, put it right in there. Make sure nothing is hitting these buildings.
Yeah.
Unless they are falling in the building.
Yeah, exactly.
But that's not what you're trying to show here. So.
Can you turn your paint over on and off so we can see the... Yeah. Perfect, dude.
Okay, so I hope you enjoyed it, Nico Flo. Colton, this was my last critique for tonight.
All right, I'm on my last one actually now too.
All right, great. So I'll switch the camera to you.
All right, so this guy's actually pretty good. I have one thing to say for the most part that's going to help you so much because um, I used to have this exact same problem, and once I started working, they were always grilling me for it. And once I really started doing it, which is material indication, and I mean like hardcore material indication. So what I've noticed with basically all of your pieces is two things. They're all rendered with only a slight variety in the materials. Like you're good at your local values. You're pretty good at your local values, like stuff like this, like the red, the light fur, the leather. I think pushing the material, everything's rendered in a very similar fashion. So pushing your material will really help. Because I've been doing character and character skins for a while now for work, just tons of them, and really like going hardcore on your material indication is gonna help. Is gonna help so much. Like just definitely pushing. It'll make your things, your designs, and your stuff feel a lot more real. I used to get critiqued on this all the time because I was only comfortable rendering like matte surface materials and similar. I would definitely push. Like I think a lot of your metals can be pushed. Look at some material reference, some stuff like that, and just try to push it a little bit more. And another thing that I noticed is that all of your lighting situations are very similar. I think you're very comfortable lighting things kind of diffused from above. Like all of your pieces I've noticed are lit basically diffused from above. I'll go grab your portfolio again really quick and hold on, I gotta figure out which one it is. Framed. I think it's this one. No, this is not yours. Here it is. So all of your all of the every object you have is either matte or close to matte surface. Like this metal is very much matte surface. Like it's not super reflective. This is a little bit, in fact this paint is more reflective than your metal is. Your leather, very similarly rendered. Like I would just say, like your local values are pretty good, but a lot of your materials, like this is pushed a little bit more, but everything is still very much lit in a very diffused way. And was reading the chat. Okay, and the lighting is like you can go for some more like variety in the lighting. Like you can just tell on all these pieces it's like the exact same lighting scenario. It's the exact same kind of materials, and it ends up being maybe a bit boring rendering wise after a time because everything's just the same. And I would say push it. Push that sort of thing a lot. Find some real nice reference. Use your, like, see, like this snake, for example. His body, matte. This guy's face, matte. This thing on the snake, matte surface. These chains, almost matte surface. The hair on this creature, basically matte surface. The teeth on this, matte surface. The background, still, like, it just feels matte surface. Like, the rendering, your light source, all that stuff is pretty good. I would definitely say materials. Adding materials. Let's see what else I said. Texture. I think texture would also help you a lot, and that has to do with materials actually. Like the texture on this guy's face. Like, for example, you could definitely go in and start to. I never used. I mean, I rarely use texture brushes, so I might have to look really quick. But I would say, like, going in and having like texture, like look at like frog skin and like snake skin or and all that kind of stuff, and maybe have some like transitions between stuff like this. I think checking out the materials of some different animals or creatures like frog skin. Images. Yeah, like check this out. Look at that. Look at the material changes just within like the skin, or the color and material changes and all that just within the one frog, like just in his face. He has these really hot specular highlights, and his eyes, and they glow like in these certain areas. They feel like they almost glow, like in here. You can do stuff like that, like. So I think a lot of your designs could be pushed a whole lot just by some material indication. Yeah, that's pretty much all I had to say. I don't think I'll really do a demo on this for the most part, because I think it's pretty straightforward. Maybe I can just do like a little bit. Just make sure that some different. What else? I wonder if there's anything else to talk about on this. And then I guess just pushing the design. I can tell you have a lot of fun. You had a lot of fun building this. Like, you have your own logos and his own like biker gang or whatever, and jacket, and their matching outfits and all that. It looks like you had a lot of fun on your portfolio. So like, even just go in afterwards and add like a bunch of these little third level details, like hanging, maybe some hanging bits coming off.
Pins, buttons, zippers.
Yeah, I don't know. Like, I don't know if I don't think he wears a necklace or like anything like that, but like third level details maybe that can just help push that little last extra bit. Like this transition in the face from this kind of reddish to this kind of orangish tannish color, I think you can get more integrate, like more like this kind of stuff with it. You can really start to have fun and explore the texture and color change, like on this person, because it's like in nature it's rarely just like this smooth transition. There's usually some sort of very interesting transition that you can find with like textures and bumpiness and whatever. Like all like fish and creatures like that have that a lot. And I'm certainly no creature expert or designer by any means, but I know that material, especially in animals and creatures and stuff like this guy, would be very important. So maybe, going in and adding some variety in here, maybe some there's like a color change in like the joints of animals and tails and stuff like that. I don't know. What do you have to say, Buren?
Yeah, it's just a case-by-case material study and apply it to each object. That's it. Like, And definitely, I really support the Colton's idea on if it's a lizard-like person, then borrow from that. At the definitely change the difference between the chrome and matte. So yeah,
Yeah.
and wet and dry.
Bounced color and lighting too is really important.
Subsurface scattering sometimes, if it's a skin, that's one of the most difficult ones for me, at least.
Yeah.
Yeah. Also, if you're doing glasses, transparency of the glass and how the light bends
Exactly.
in the glass object curves and stuff, that's something you must keep an eye on.
Yep.
I think. But overall, it's really well done, I think.
Oh, absolutely. I mean,
I had a lot of fun browsing through this. It was great.
I think with only a little bit of work, you could probably get hired at like a studio. I honestly think that if you did a little bit more practice on lighting, like you could probably find a studio job somewhere right now. Maybe mostly probably at indie studios and stuff. I wouldn't say that your stuff is probably AAA yet. I think it's very close though. Just a couple more fundamentals, especially like what I've been talking about, and you're gonna be starting to like be able to look for jobs and stuff. I would say. Come on. Like, I'm just doing a really quick.
I like that highlight you have on those goggles. It's like snake eyes.
Yeah, a little bit. I mean, I don't know. I probably wouldn't have it that intense.
Or like a cobra fang. I don't
Yeah.
know. Looks like a snake, snake fangs.
Yeah.
Great. I like it so much.
I designed a number of pieces of furniture for Oculus, and it was all about rendering materials. I was doing chairs and cabinets and different things made out of stone and made out of reflective stone and made out of like a table with like 3 different materials on it, including like brass and this really reflective black surface and matte surfaces and all kinds of stuff. And it was all about the materials, because they were like, we need to know what materials these are made out of, like, so render it effectively. Essentially, I actually have a bunch of well, not all of them, but a bunch of the pieces of furniture that I designed for that project. I put a video up on my Instagram and Facebook page recently of me tossing like some of the stuff I designed around. One of them was like a Christmas present. There was a couch, there was a chair, there was a table, there was a couple of stuff like that. But it's all about material. Like, a lot of it is so, like, look at the difference of this area right here. Maybe I'll look at the what can I use? Look at this area right here when I turn this on and off. Very important materials. It goes, I mean, it may not be super reflective metal, but I highly doubt it's supposed to look like it's made out of stone. Like, a lot of this stuff, it'll just help sell your ideas so much if you have some really nice material indications in there. And a lot of the time I'll even use like a soft brush and just go in and be like, do stuff like that. I would say some subsurface scattering. I think this guy looks a little bit... It's going to be very hard to show subsurface scattering, especially since his skin is red to begin with. But he looks a little bit pale. Almost like he's made out of clay. I might just add a little bit more subsurface scattering in those areas that would get hit by it a lot. And you'll have to look this up. Like, if you don't know what subsurface scattering is, you'll have to it's basically when light enters an object that light can penetrate through, it will bounce around a little bit inside of it and create this Fresnel effect. Oh, never mind. So it's and I would say your work is very good. There's just a couple of things that would help so much. But anyways, when light enters an object, it bounces around inside of it and creates a very bright glow. I can look up on Google really quick. Subsurface scattering. SSS. It's called in 3D terms because you can turn that on in 3D. Like it's this kind of look. This is it. It's when light enters an object and it bounces around inside, and it can happen with. It happens a lot with human skin. It happens a lot with fruit and leaves and organic plants, like behind the ears. But you'll notice, and this is something that's a little bit more difficult to notice. So it's really obvious, obviously, right here. But what you'll notice is actually right here, it's happening a lot. See? This is really saturated, and then the saturation really peaks right here, right in this area, on all of this, and right here. And that's subsurface scattering. All there, right in here, all this area. It really catches those warm tones. Like a lot of this area, and this area right here. All these kinds of areas will get a lot of subsurface scattering, and that's what makes it look like it's not made out of clay. Let's see, and that's just something that's very important to remember. Ew, this is gross. Look at that. It illustrates the point very well, but that is nasty. It just looks horrible. It's like that.
It doesn't have muscles in there, dude. It's all skin and bone.
It's gross, dude.
And a couple of veins.
Couple of veins, yeah.
And he's missing the wrist bone.
Yeah. So anyways, that subsurface scattering, it's very important. It makes things it makes things look quite good. If they're like human and all that. I don't know what I did with that layer, but anyways. So maybe add some of that. You see, like, even if I turn this on and off, it looks a little bit less clay and a little bit more, well, it looks a little bit more sunburned, but it looks a little bit more like skin, like human. And I didn't do a very good job. I just did a real quick thing. But yeah, so like both of those things, it just takes it a little bit more, a little bit further. So yeah, I would just say focus on materials. And if you do want a little bit of design advice, like, I don't think you need a lot, but maybe on some of your more like mechanized parts, things might be a little bit too simple. If you really want design advice, like, I don't think that's the biggest thing. And I don't know the style of the project and all, and I don't know where you want to get hired or any of that stuff. But there could even be a little bit of subsurface scattering going on in here, to be honest. Like, you might be able to just do it just a little bit of something like that, because the light does penetrate it. Something like that. Maybe a little bit deeper design-wise. Think about how things, I don't know, it's kind of hard to explain. Let me think. Some of these designs, like this design on the wrist, feels a little bit clunky. And I know that's kind of what the idea of it is. But maybe just thinking a little bit more about how some of these things, like connect, maybe where some of the cut lines are, how that works. Like if you look at a Pip-Boy, for example, from Fallout, Fallout for Pip-Boy concept art. No, this is not loading. You can hear me, right, Burn?
Yeah, I do.
Okay, good. That means my internet did not go out. My Google's just being a butt. And now my Firefox is frozen. Of course. Anyways, it doesn't really matter if it's frozen or not. Look at some like Fallout 4, like Pip-Boy or Power Armor concept art, and that might help a lot for that sort of thing. I'm gonna have to quit my Firefox really quick because it's not responding. Task Manager, Firefox. Oops. One second, everybody. I got to turn my live thing off quick. Actually, no. I have to pull up Burin again because I just quit Hangouts. All right. Sorry, dude. I had to quit Hangouts really quick.
What's going on, Colton?
My Firefox was not responding, so I had to quit it. And okay, it looks like you're back. It looks like everything's back to normal now.
Yeah.
All right. So, all just to look at a picture of a Pip-Boy. Okay. I do want to bring up my twitch.tv/art /ArtQuest Live. I hope the stream didn't go down or anything. If someone in the stream can... No, it didn't. Okay.
Still streaming, so you can change the camera to yourself.
Okay, great. And, I will change my share screen. Screen 3. Allow. Okay. Anyways, this is what didn't go down. Okay, so like a bunch of these... Oops, a bunch of these like parts in here, you can see that they're very... The assembly, even though it's like kind of low-tech stuff, you can see that it's very well thought through, like with all that stuff. I think that your design could really use with some of that. It's just some more push in that area, if I'm going to be nitpicky about your design specifically. So... at the end of the day, I think, you know, the most important thing is going to be your materials and lighting, and then just starting pushing, exploring more stuff. I think all of your vehicles, all of your characters, all of your scenes are just lit and rendered the same way, and maybe just showing some variety. And everything else is pretty good. I mean, your perspective's fine. Your characters are pretty good. You know, again, I'll turn this on and off. It's just subtle things, though. Like, I'm not really changing a lot. Anyways, I think that's about what I have to say about this stuff. Really nice job. I think this is Austin stuff, so... Great. Is that Woodsman, or is that someone else in the chat? Because it seemed like you were Austin. So, it's just stretching. Okay, I think that's all I have to say about this. Okay, yeah, that's him. Great. I'm glad you got to see this then. No worries, dude. All our usernames are different. Yeah, it's some really nice work you have, and I'll definitely meet up with you and hang out with you when you get to Pasadena. That'll be That'll be fun to say hey, because I'm living out here right now. Buren,
Yeah.
Burnie, look at that
Yes.
face. Just
Ooh.
adorable. All right. Thank you, everybody, for showing up, I guess. I think that's the end of the stream. We went way longer than we expected to, as usual. I was like, Buren, I'm so tired. I only slept like 2 hours last night. I need to get right to bed. I only want to stream for like an hour today, and we've been live for ever.
2 hours and a half. I think that's going to be our average.
Yeah, it is.
Run time from now on, probably.
I just can't do a non-thorough critique, right? I have
but
to be
you know,
thorough.
I really thank the guys who submitted your work for us. Sorry we couldn't reach everyone. We can only do so much, and we usually pick the one that we can really explain a lot. You know, not if we see something really good, then there wouldn't be too much to explain except talk the good points. Or if something that's really beginner level, then that would be really hard. We could just say, hey, go to fundamental and move on. So we kind of try to pick the ones that kind of, you know, find something more to say about. So I hope you guys understand.
Yeah. If you know anybody who may be even remotely interested in this group, tell them about the channel, invite them to the Discord, have them join the streams. We're really pushing to I had a pretty crazy week this week, so I couldn't spam social media or anything that we were going live. I think next week we may start inviting guests. I got a couple people that I may ask that I know. I'll keep everything up to date. As soon as I know and things are confirmed, I can announce the guest. Yeah, man. I will.
Yeah, man. We want to see your pretty face now.
So that's about it.
It's quite fun.
Yeah, awesome. I had a lot of fun doing it, and you know, at first I was like, I don't want to do this, but then after we got on and people are responding and everything, it's nice to know that you're helping out the community a bit.
I guess we cut off our broadcast now. It's kind of quite late for me as well, and
yeah. If any of you guys need anything, just ping one of us on the Discord, and I'll get back to you pretty soon. I generally respond pretty fast. If I don't respond once, after you ping me once, you can ping me again, or try to catch me while I'm on, because I'm not always on, especially probably not later today.
Yeah, if you guys want to submit any critique artworks, then try to submit it maybe 1 or 2 days before if possible, because last minute things are really hard to do. If you give us a little bit early so we can kind of think about it for a longer time, and we would, you know, we would be able to give you more feedback that way.
Yeah.
When the time comes, of course, yeah.
Yeah, honestly, just like if post stuff just during the week. You can post stuff to stream artwork critique. Yeah, because we don't get a lot of artwork generally because we're not super. There's not a ton of people in here, so this is probably the best time to make sure that you actually can get feedback from us, because if this group grows much more and we get a lot of artwork submitted, we can only really kind of cherry pick specific pieces that we think are going to help the most people. You know, like I think Bradley's pieces with the issues with the value and composition and like thinking about the layering of the landscapes, that's something I think a lot of people need to hear. Like a lot of beginners, if they hear something like that, they're like, oh my gosh, I've never even thought of that, and they try it and they find that it works really well for them and it helps. But if I'm talking about like little tiny speculars on a piece of metal, I don't think that's going to help most beginners that much. It's really only going to help the person that I'm critiquing just push the work a little bit more, which I'm fine doing sometimes. But I think the bulk of the work I would like to talk about like fundamental issues. I still got to talk to Buren about maybe making some fundamental challenges, stuff like that. We were just both really busy with work this past week. I even got behind. I spent so much time on this channel over the past couple weeks that I actually got behind in work and had to pull an all-nighter over the week. So, but I love it. I love running this channel. It's super fun, and I love everyone in the chat, and they're super awesome, and you have a bunch of amazing work, and it's actually really intimidating sometimes when people submit work like Austin submitted his work, and I'm like, oh my gosh, how am I going to critique this? It's so good. He's way better at doing characters than I am. But luckily I found something to talk about. But like the work is just like really awesome. Like even just this logo like itself, like so much effort and fun I think was just put into this that it's cool. Like my art center portfolio was nothing like this when I applied. Or not like this. I didn't have nearly as much fun as this. It was all over the place. So, and then you know, the like art center portfolios, like, you know, even like Maya's and Christina's and Polly's and everyone's, the standard is so high nowadays. It's crazy, and thinking these people are so young too, a bunch of them, makes me afraid and want to try harder. Maybe not afraid, but want to try harder and feel inspired and all that. So anyways, I guess we'll wrap the stream up.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
see you guys on Sunday and next Sunday.
See you next Sunday.
Colton,
Hopefully
we
we'll
need to change the title of our YouTube streams because it's always Saturday Test.
I know. I can't figure out how to do that. What the heck? I
don't know. We will figure it out on the next Saturday.
Yeah. We should literally just change it to like Sunday stream or something, you know.
Yeah, just set one name and keep going.
Yeah. So if you didn't get to catch this whole stream, I think it takes a couple hours for YouTube to process and put it up as a video, but it will be up. It will definitely be up.
So share to your friends,
Awesome.
anyone who's concerned, and
yeah, share it.
guys.
Seriously, we want everybody to see this if possible because, you know, we're putting in a lot of time and energy into critiquing, and we want as many people to benefit as possible, and we just want to build a really cool art community. And just, you know, so. Anyways, I will see all you guys later. Thanks for coming.
Thank you, Colton. Thank you, everyone.
Yep.
All right.
Bye-bye.
See you soon. Bye.